Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Matt here, and today I'm making this video just to show you my process in doing a quick rifle check. I have a match coming up in 2 days in Palmerston, and I just performed this rifle check on my own rifle here, but a new shooter who doesn't have his own rifle yet is borrowing my spare rifle here for the match, so I thought I'd just turn on the camera and perform the same rifle check for anyone who's interested. Basically, I do this periodically on my rifles, but if there's an important match or event coming up, I'll also just check it a couple days earlier. I've seen it before where someone's shooting really well and all of a sudden they can't hit anything, they're missing left, right, up, down, and it turns out their scope rings have come loose. I've also seen it before where someone's scope base actually shifted forward. So just taking a couple minutes before the match day and just doing a quick rifle check is totally worth the peace of mind that you're going to know your equipment's going to work for you on the day of the match. And again, it doesn't take too long, just a couple minutes is totally worth your time. So the first thing I like to do is look at the scope. It doesn't matter if you have really nice glass, if you have a bunch of dirt and oil on the lens. So that's the first thing I check. So I'm checking both the objective lens and the ocular lens, just making sure there's no excessive dirt or oil on it. Sometimes you accidentally touch your lens, especially the one back here, and you get a bunch of oils from your hands on it. So I'll take some air and I'll blow out the big pieces of dirt and sand so I'm not scratching the lenses unnecessarily. And then I like to just use some very basic optical cleaner if I need to, and then just wipe the lens clean. The stuff I use really isn't fancy. This is the same stuff I use for my glasses, but I figure if it's good enough on my glasses, which I look through every waking hour, it's good enough for the scope. This is really gentle. It's not too harsh. It's not going to strip away any coatings on the lens. So I use this, and again, just a nice microfiber cloth to just wipe it down if I need to. Besides that, scopes really don't need much maintenance at all. Again, just making sure that they're clean and ready to go is probably the best. The next thing I like to check is the action. This is for function. If you have a dirty action, especially paying close attention to the bolt face, that's going to cause a lot more potential for feeding issues and extraction issues especially. So I really like to make sure that the chamber area as well as my bolts are nice and clean. Rimfires don't have as much tolerances for gunk and dirt buildup, especially in these small little extractor claws. So I just make sure, again, to just clean that out and make sure it's ready to go. Also here in Canada, since we shoot in cold weather sometimes, they can be even more finicky in the cold. So again, just making sure it's clean, good to go for match day is the way to do it. I just simply use an old toothbrush that I can just use to brush away any dirt. So once that's done, you have your action nice and clean and your bolt is ready to go. Obviously, just put it back in your rifle. Something I wouldn't recommend doing, and I think a lot of guys will agree with me, is do not clean the bore of your barrel unless you regularly do so, and that's something that is standard for you to do after every range session. The reason for that is precision rifles can be very finicky on how they shoot and their point of impact, and if you go and clean, strip down all the lead in your barrel, it's going to change the characteristics of it, and until you put down quite a few more fouling rounds, it's going to shoot differently. So if it's already shooting good for you, don't touch it before a match is probably going to be totally fine. And lastly, what I like to check are basically all the important fasteners, all the screws that hold the optic system onto the rifle, as well as the action screws. Okay, so how do you know the screws on your rifle are torqued down properly? Well, this is where a torque wrench would come into play. I strongly recommend picking up a torque wrench if you have a precision rifle or you just work on your rifle even somewhat frequently. It's totally worth it. Invaluable tool to have, so definitely pick one up. They're not too expensive, and again, it's just more for peace of mind. You're not over torquing anything, which could cause issues, especially when it comes to the scope setup, and you're not leaving anything too loose, which of course could potentially come loose on you. So the first thing I like to check are the action screws. For my rimfire rifles, I generally use 35 inch-pounds. Of course, that specification might be different depending on you or the rifle you have, but I'm just going to go ahead and check those. I'm just making sure nothing's come loose and seeing if the screws are turning at all. Those two were still tight. The torque wrench there broke at the correct weight, so that was still completely fine. And now I'm just going to check again the entire scope setup. So that means both the base, so the CZ457 here, I have an Area 419 base that clamps onto the dovetail on the receiver. So I'm going to check the 4 screws there, as well as the scope rings. Now, all of these torque settings are going to be different depending on your setup. So again, check the manuals and documentation, of course, to know exactly what torque spec you're supposed to be using. So I'm just going through the rings again and making sure that nothing is coming loose. And I can see here, none of the screws are moving. Generally speaking, if you have quality fasteners and you've done everything properly, they shouldn't come loose on you. But again, this is just a quick rifle check before match day to give you peace of mind, to know your equipment's gonna function as it should. And that's basically it. So basically 3 steps, I guess. Checking the scope, making sure it's clean, making sure the action of your rifle is clean, and then just checking the fasteners, your action screws, as well as your optics mounts. Anyway, I hope this was an informative video for some of you guys. I hope to see you at the Palmerston match this Saturday. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.